What's going on, guys? So back here at Brat Brash Racing Gas, and today what we're going to talk about here for you guys is air filter system. So this is going to be my losi 5T here, and actually what I have on here right now is going to be the stock losi mini WRC filter, actually, that actually takes these filters right here. Let me go and show you these, guys. So these are going to be the really bigger style filters for the inside of this guy here. So we're actually going to get rid of that today. Main reason why I'm not using this anymore is because it wasn't the best airflow, I guess you could say. It's very hard to try and find a outerwear cover for this. I don't know if they even make one, to tell you the truth, because of I have found one that was close, but it still didn't fit. So after much research, and huge thanks to my buddy Lee at Team Hoonage, we one of the best filters out there, actually filter setups, and he runs as well, is this is going to be an MCD style filter. So you have the adapter that goes on by the carb. You have the actual small filter setup that actually goes out to the filter, and then this is going to be your filter. So that's what we're going to install here today. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, if you do have this bigger style intake air filter, air filter, you're actually going to use this bit right here, which is actually a 3mm. And what I do actually is, this is actually a shorter style bit. I do have a longer style one, but at the moment it is actually, the tip broke off, but DDM Racing is taking care of me and sending me a brand new one. So thankfully I can still use my short one. I don't use, I've talked to you guys about this before, I don't use 12-volt impacts on stuff like this because it's very easy to strip out screws. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start taking apart this air filter. So what you're going to do first is, like I said, these are 3mm screws. So you're going to go ahead and take these 4 screws out here first. Now, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There's actually 4 nuts on the back of this air filter. Sometimes they drop, sometimes they do not. So just be careful for those. They're right in the back of the filter itself. You can't see them from the front. So once you take out these 4 screws, make sure that those 4 nuts on the back side actually stay intact. They should, but sometimes if you go to run them a lot, they just basically from vibration, they like to come out. So just be careful of that there. So that's going to be a second screw there. And like I said, you got 4 screws here. And what these actually do, these don't hold on the whole air filter either, guys. These actually just hold on basically your air filter assembly. Your whole air filter is actually held on by the middle screws that go onto your carb. So as soon as you take this off, don't be alarmed. Your air filter is not going to fall instantly off your motor. You know, you're not going to lose your carb, nothing like that. So you got those 4 screws out. As you can see, that's going to be your back side there. You got a little bit of grass in there, not too much though. I only ran this about 1 time. So that's probably why it's actually very clean. You can see though that it picked up a little bit, so with this filter, so it definitely did its job. It's not that bad though. It's seen way worse. If you are doing a air filter, there's 2 things you should do. Always oil your air filter before you put it back in. If you can basically keep the air filter that you're using, like let's say it's not this dirty, okay, it's pretty clean. So what you can do is use Dawn dish soap and under hot water, or like warmish water, and just kind of mix it all up in your hands a little bit and push it together. and then just basically squeeze all the water out, twist it real good, get it all nice and dry. Hit it real lightly with either a can of air, or you can hit it with a air compressor. I usually hit it with an air compressor. You can actually spray it off real lightly, because you don't want to rip the foam or anything like that. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, that's if you plan on reusing your air filter. So that's going to be the outside element there, which, as you can see, it's not that bad at all. Still very usable. No reason for it to be thrown out or anything. So actually, we'll go ahead and set all that aside. Now, if you go and look here, right here on the inside is those two screws I was talking about that hold your carb. So your air filter assembly is basically held down like this. And there's two main screws here. So what we're going to do is pull those two screws, and they're just going to be the bigger style Allen head, which is that one there. I don't know the number offhand. It is bigger than a 3mm, because this is my 3mm here, and if you actually compare them, you can see that that's clearly a lot bigger. So if I had to guess, I'm gonna say it's a 5mm. I'm pretty sure it is. So you're just basically gonna loosen these up, and you're gonna pull these two screws out here. You're going to set these aside. You definitely don't want to lose these. Always make sure that they're clean of, rust and everything too. You don't want to put them back in all rusty or anything like that. So when you're doing the second one, you don't want this whole thing to twist like that. So it's just a good idea to really lightly just kind of hold it with your hand and hold the back of your carb, just so that way it doesn't drop with your fuel lines on it and everything. So you can see how that air filter assembly is actually starting to come off. I got that screw real loose there. You can actually even unscrew the rest by hand. Kind of just lightly pull it out there. Again, you don't want to lose your gasket too, because there's actually a gasket that sits behind on right where your carb actually meets up to the motor block. So you're just going to kind of balance that right there, and you can actually see right here where that gasket is. So that paper gasket's right there. You can see it on the back of there. Usually the gasket to the block to the carb stays on, but if for any reason it does come off, you want to always make sure that there's two small dots, and those dots want to be lined up right in between the holes, so where the air goes through and everything. So you want to make sure you have those as well. So we're just going to kind of put that carb to the side, just like that for now. And we're actually going to go ahead and get this gasket off here. Now, you want to make sure that when you do not rip this gasket, because they're very thin. So usually what I'll do is just take a small, tiny, like very tiny little flathead, little small guy. And usually what I'll do is I'll just lightly, very lightly push up on it, and it'll pretty much escape from that. So as you can see there, it's in my hand now. We have no issues of tearing, of it ripping. So we're done with this air filter assembly now. So what you can do, so that way if you ever either want to sell it, or if you want to keep it as an extra or anything, you just basically go ahead and put it back together now, so you don't lose anything. So pretty much you put your outside filter back in, your inside filter goes back in, and there's your top. So probably a good idea to shake all that grass out. And you can actually line up the 4 holes right there. That's another reason too that is good to do this, so that way you don't get screws mixed up in the stuff that you think that goes to it and it really doesn't, because I have done that. So now you can see right now I push this one out. You can see right where I was talking about where that nut likes to sit on the back there. So the nut actually pretty much pushed itself out, but that's okay. So we're going to line it right back up with the plastic there to how it goes like that. So, and like I said, that does happen sometimes, guys. Not all the time, but it's just a very good idea to hold it together. So we're gonna go ahead and lightly tighten this up. You don't have to tighten it fully because, you know, if you plan on cleaning it up and reusing it, or if you plan on selling it, it's all up to you guys, personal preference. So we're just gonna go and tighten that up there. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with this air filter at all. It's just I didn't really like the way it was running with my motor. So we're gonna upgrade to a different filter system here. So you can see that's all together. Air filter assembly is all completely 100%. Your filters are back in where they need to be, and you can actually set away your stock filtering with your air filter. So we can go ahead and set that aside for now. So that's all good there. We'll just go ahead and set that right there though. So that's all good. So coming back to your carb setup, explain to you guys a little bit about a carburetor. So your carburetor, this is pretty much your butterfly system. There is actually a gasket as well that sits underneath your ball that sometimes that can leak or rip or tear. So always double check that. Always double check too that your main carb screws on top, the four on top, are nice and tight, because that's another thing it can leak fuel out. Also on your carburetor you have your high and low needles here, H and L. Your main screw here with the spring in the center, that is actually going to be your idle screw mixture. So if you're basically either idling too high or you're idling too low, or you're not, your car is wanting to die out, or it seems like it's just really shaky and it's idling wrong, that's going to be the screw mixture there that you're messing with. So give me one sec here, guys. I'm going to actually grab a chair here. Alrighty. Makes things a little bit easier for me, guys. Always nicer to have a chair where it's accessible to where you can use it. Makes things a little bit easier for you guys too to be able to see. So just go ahead and turn this guy just a hair. Oop, wrong way. Sorry guys, I'm using a DJI setup. There we go. Okay, so coming over to your air filter setup. This air filter setup, believe it or not, actually comes off of a MCD. It is a different type of fit scale than a losi, but they did their homework when they built this air filter setup, and there's a lot of guys out there that run it. So I'm going to show you guys here how to put it together. Make things a lot easier for you. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is you're going to take your gasket, this little paper gasket. Remember I said double check to make sure there's no rips, no tears in it. So that's all good there. So we're going to kind of stick that on there. And sometimes it'll actually stick on there really well from if you have a little bit of fuel that came off or anything like that. So, well, what we're going to do here is get your carb screws here. So those two big bolts, remember? Those two big bolts are going to go right through here. Again, this is a part, guys, where you really want to be careful, because if you do put these carb bolts through and they actually want to lift up the gasket, they can tear it very, very easily. Very easily. Which you really don't want to do. So when you guys are doing it, just make sure you're really careful putting the bolts through, because you don't want to tear your gasket, because believe it or not, they can cause an air leak in between your carb to the air filter's block. So that can actually cause it to either not run right, or it could even cause it just to run rough at an idle. Every motor is different. So just make sure that you really don't rip or tear on this gasket. And what we're going to do here is just basically, first thing you're going to do is make sure that your gasket, which actually you can see mine, it probably wanted to slide off here, which it did. So we're gonna actually take it here. Kind of snuck itself away from me for a minute. So I just take my little flathead here. So if you actually look, it's kind of good though, guys. I can show you how this works. So if you look there, you can see those two little holes. There's one at the top and there's one at the bottom. What those are for is to go onto your carb, because on the carb there's a hole here and a hole here. And that actually lets everything through that it needs to. So when you do put your carb gasket back on, you want to make sure that those holes are lined up, because if they do not, and you do go to put your carb gasket back on, they are not going to be let through. So your easiest way to do this is put your bolts through, kind of balance them with your hand a little bit, and just take your gasket then. And again, be really careful with this part, guys, because this is actually a easier gasket to rip rather than the gasket that goes to the filter system. So you're gonna basically just lightly push up on that, and you're gonna come back to your, I'm gonna say this is 5 mil, I'm pretty sure it is, because it's definitely not 3. That's another thing, guys. When you always tighten in your carb too, you always want to just make one bolt snug and then another bolt snug. And the main reason why I say that is because I've actually seen some guys on some videos where they'll just torque one down and then torque the other one down. Well, the problem is when you do that, you actually torque one down all the way, you're going to have a problem with that other one wanting to sit down, where it's not going to seat correctly, or it's going to want to fight you. So usually what I'll do is I'll just kind of tighten one side snug, like, okay, that's snug there. So you're going to pull that out, you're going to come to here, and you're going to tighten this one snug right there. Then when you fully get to it, you can fully tighten this down. You want to make sure that you fully tighten them down. Make sure that way the carb's set up right. It doesn't cause an air leak or anything off the motor. Usually to where when it fully stops is where you're going to stop it. And I usually do it with one hand, just so that way, because if you do it with two hands, you could put too much torque on it, and you can either, you can either snap this piece right here, or you can strip out the hole that the bolt goes into, and you really don't want to do that. So just one hand right there, that's nice and tight. You can see that it's not moving. So that's all set up there. Next part we're going to come to is, if you guys are wondering part numbers too, this is for MCD, and the part number is 173001. And actually I'll tell you guys the other part number, because I didn't say the other part number. It's going to be 172035. And these are actually these are MCD part numbers for the MCD air filter setup here. So the next thing you're going to do is this little piece right here. This is going to be the silicone, basically the air filter setup. So this is very similar almost to the Turtle Racing setup, but two things are different. One, it's actually going to be smaller, and the second part is it's not metal, so it doesn't conduct heat, which means that if it's all metal, it's going to conduct heat really, really easily. And it's going to get the air filter hot, and you're going to run into a whole bunch of issues. I haven't done heating temperatures setups for as far as what are the temperature rating of each one, but I might be able to one day. If I do get a setup for that, I'll do it for you guys. But this is going to be, like I said, it's a shorter silicone air filter setup. So this is going to be the tube piece right here. So this is going to go over the top of here. This actually goes right onto the carb setup diaphragm that we just put up on here. So this is almost very, very similar to a velocity stack that you're putting on. So what I'm going to do too, just for the heck of it, after or before I do everything, I'm going to put a nice little zip tie around here just to make sure it's nice and tight. Now, the nice thing about this is, compared to the Turtle Racing one, this one is very much more movable. So, if you want to, let's say, angle your air filter this way, you can angle it that way. If you want to angle your air filter, you know, this way a little bit more, that's fine too. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to give you guys an example. I don't know why you would do this, because it's going to be very, very close by the exhaust and the heat's going to be crazy, but you could aim it backwards. You can do it any way that you want to. Now, the nice thing about this is it's nice and movable. It's very pliable to get the silicone. Very easy to spin it around back and forth. So that's going to be there. Nice thing about this as well, you can also run the HPI style filter, which is a different style filter. It's a 3-stage filter as well, so you can do that as well. And this is going to be the air filter, the MCD one actually. So the part number on this one as well is going to be 89009. It's going to be the part number on that one, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off here. And this is going to be the air filter here that actually is set up for this one. Now, two things you'll instantly know about this air filter is there's 2 screws on the front that where you can basically take the top of your diaphragm off. And the other thing that they did on this one is actually a dual setup air filter, because if you look inside, there's another air filter on the inside. So this one is actually going to be, compared to the HPI one, it's a little bit bigger, not by much though, and the inlet side is actually a different style shape compared to the HPI setup. The HPI setup is pretty much just going to be the circle style, and it's pretty much a circle in, and that's about it. So this one's going to be a little bit bigger, not by much, but it's nice that they have the 2 set screws here in the front as well. It makes things a lot easier, makes things a lot easier to take apart. It's just a lot easier to deal with, and it's just a lot more user friendly. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this guy, and I'm just going to kind of slide it in here. Again, I'm probably going to use zip ties for this, just because it makes things a lot more, you know, user friendly. And it's going to be, like I said, you can do this 2 ways, guys. It can either be set up like this, or it can be brought down more. It's all personal preference. The nice thing about this setup is it's very movable. You can really set it up in different styles. It's not going to conduct a lot of heat, because it's like a thin light silicone where it's against metal. Again, I'm going to keep an eye on this, you know, to where I want to turn it exactly once I get the body on and everything. So I'm going to have all that set up. But yeah, like I said, it all depends on which way you want to put it. You can put it towards the back of the exhaust. You can put it straight up if you want to. It all depends what kind of body you're running. It all depends if you're just running a cage. It all depends on what you guys are doing with it. So, but yeah, this is going to be the MCD style setup on what they run. I believe, I want to say their part number of the buggy that is, I think it's a RRV4, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but that's going to be the setup for what they do, opposed to the humongous losi setup. Nice thing about this is too, I'll probably be able to find a really easy style outerwear cover for this. And if I don't use this air filter here, I can actually use a nice style push-on style HPI filter as well, because that's going to be a lot easier to find by me locally, and it's going to be a lot easier to find an outerwear cover as well. We all know that. So if they do make an outerwear cover for this one, I will definitely let you guys know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and again, you know, like, comment, subscribe, definitely appreciate Brat Bash Racing Gas, guys. So hopefully you guys are having a great week, and I'll catch you guys later and hope to see you again. Peace.